All right, welcome back to the meat of the matter. We got a great guest today. It's very unique, a unique story, and we're going to get into all things carnivore, politics, and we'll just get right into it.
Else is sick and fucking tired of seeing all the carnivore shit all over these fucking apps. No one cares if you only eat meat. Every single one of you have to identify by carnivore fucking Connie, carnivore Ken, whatever the fuck your name is, and you add carnivore to the end of it on your fucking bio is fucking weird. Weird. You're literally treating your diet like a fucking religion. A religion. A meat religion. Okay? Like, what in the absolute meat fuck is this shit? Your fucking boards with your eggs and your cheese and your fucking butter and your dates. Who cares? You can't shit. Your fiber intake is fucking zero, and you think you're just fucking trudging through life getting all healthy. Get the fuck out of here. No one cares. Your meat fucking ass, your meat farts, your meat sweats. No one wants to fucking hear about it. Okay?
Welcome back. We are live every Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. in the UK and Ireland, 7 p.m. in Netherlands and continental Europe. Peter is not available today. He is probably cycling, drinking his raw milk instead of water. But we get the pleasure of sitting down with people from all walks of life, all the stories and all the different journeys that carnivores make. And in this one, we have a guest today who is running for Congress, and it's about bloody time. I love it. Even though Mark's in Ireland, I'm in Canada. We've got Christopher Brandlin here from the States, and we're going to get into all things. Christopher, thanks for joining us today, man. I'm really looking forward to picking your brain and hearing your story.
Awesome. It's a pleasure, man.
Cool. Well, let's just get right into it, and just maybe you can introduce yourself and how did you get to be where you're at now?
Yeah. So I told the story more than once, so it gets easier every time, right? So I came from the fitness industry before going to law school. So actually, even during law school, so I was a former fitness manager, but then I got into all natural bodybuilding when I got into law school because, when I was in college, I partied my ass off. And I was even telling you guys, even before we started, like my one time in Ireland is actually when I drank like nothing but like, had duck potatoes, Guinness and Guinness and whiskey for like 10 days straight. But that was my college life. But when I got into law school, I wanted to take it to extreme with fitness. So I met with an all natural bodybuilding coach. I said, hey, I don't want to take any substances. I want to stay all natural, but I want to get as lean as possible. I want to win the contest. And he says, all right, well, I'm going to put you on a ketogenic diet. So that's where ketogenic diets actually became like a huge, like an intriguing part of like my change in nutrition. So I was doing what's called carb cycling. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but basically you're kind of doing zero carb, like minimal carb or anything for about 3 to 4 days. And then you just load up on a lot of carbohydrates. It's kind of a way you can replenish your glycogen stores and actually you can improve your metabolism in different ways. But you actually do that for the contest. And I actually was a 195 pound powerlifter, and I got down to 155 pounds, but I kept all my muscle, and I got to the single digit, like very, very low body fat. So my last contest was when I won Mr. Los Angeles Natural in 2010. And then I took the bar exam right after that. And then I was practicing law. But what got me into the carnivore diet was actually my experience with the medical industry. So I think it was about 2015 or 2016 around, I started feeling ill, and it was kind of, I call it like the umbrella of autoimmune conditions. Like, you got fibromyalgia, you got chronic fatigue syndrome, you got brain fog, I felt like my metabolism was like falling to crap like Hashimoto's. I'm like, what the hell is one? And then every time, I'm usually the early morning wake up person. I've always been, even like when I was like training in law school, I would actually wake up at 3:30 or 4 every morning, and I would work out myself, and then I would train clients, and I'd go back and forth between law school and clients all day. I didn't have any social life in law school, by the way. When I competed, going from a fraternity president who drank like a bottle of tequila every night, when I got into law school, I didn't drink for 2 years. So I already had the discipline, but I was like, what the hell is going on with me? I'm waking up, and I can barely wake up, and I can barely get out of bed. There's a lot of different kind of like suspicions on what caused it, but the biggest mistake I made was I actually went to a conventional doctor, and I never used to go to doctors before this. I mean, I'd go for a lot of broken bones and stitches, and I've broken a lot of bones in my body because I'm an adrenaline junkie. So, doing backflips off the roof at the fraternity house or something like that, or everything, you could probably imagine. But I was kind of embarrassed. I'm like, man, I'm going to a doctor because I don't feel good. This is kind of embarrassing. Like, I just turned 30. I'm like, okay, all right, let me see what's going on. And I was like, it's mainly gut issues, but it's everything else too. I'm getting like leg pain. I'm feeling nauseous. Like I can't think properly. Like, I just feel like complete crap. I feel like someone's like roofing me or something like that 24/7. I almost thought someone was like putting something in my food. Like at the law firm, I was like, is anybody like lacing my stuff? I was like, what the hell is going on with me? Anyways, but the biggest mistake is when I went to the conventional doctor and I told him about my problems. And without even doing any kind of test, he's like, all right, you probably have some gut bacterial overgrowth. Let's just attack the gut really quick. And that's going to resolve it. So we're going to give you some medications. That's what they call it, but it's really just pharmaceuticals, as you may know. Mm-hmm. So anyways, it was laxatives, corticosteroids, and antibiotics. And they started and basically just take them repeatedly. And they would cycle it like every 3 weeks to 4 weeks every month. And they did that for over a course of a year. And this is where I stayed. Instead of becoming a routine patient, I was a routine customer. And this is how I feel a lot of conventional doctors will treat them. They don't have like customers. I mean, right now, all patients in hospitals, from what I can oversee, are barcodes. That's all they really view. Just like, let's get some money. Let's get some money from the insurance company. Let's just put them on their medication. Let's get some kickbacks from our, Pfizer and everything else like that. So anyways, they did that for over a year. And the gut discomfort turned into gut pain, because first it wasn't that painful. I was like, man, I just having a little bit of bloating. What's going on? I feel like crap. A year later, it just completely incinerated my intestines. So I wasn't eating carnivore, but I was eating still more like keto, and I was eating plants, of course. But I realized that I was getting very sensitive to certain foods, like insoluble fiber. Like I could never do raw nuts and seeds again. I was like, when I started getting really bad, I was like, no way, what's going on? But the pharmaceuticals that they gave me completely incinerated my intestines and screwed up my gut flora with the antibiotics and everything. So it got so bad to a point, I'm like, doc, this used to be just this uncomfortable. Now this is painful. What do I do? He's like, yeah, he's like, I could tell, you're getting worse. I'm going to refer you to a colorectal surgeon. And this is where I'm doing like, colonoscopies like repeatedly. And I'm only like, I was only like 31, 32 years old. I'm like, that's way too young to be having this many colonoscopies. And the surgeon actually said, hey, you have a piece of your intestine that's very inflamed. I should have just says, wake the F up. Like you guys are the ones that inflamed it. All of you guys are just giving me medications. I wish I never took. He's like, well, here, I can guarantee you if we remove a piece of your intestine, about 6 inches of your intestine, you're going to feel a lot better. And, when you're very, when you're very ill, you're very desperate, you're very gullible. You can easily get manipulated when you're that bad. And this is what I'm noticing, because I started doing clinical rotations in hospitals for some of my advanced degrees. I realized that a lot of the patients, when they're very sick, they'll believe anything just to get better. And I remember I used to be a very, very good social butterfly, like during college, I was partying. I was a fraternity president. I was throwing parties. I had a great dating life. And all of a sudden, when I was very sick, I didn't do anything for a year. I even broke off a relationship because she didn't want to put up with me because I couldn't travel with her, which was like shit. I was like, so anyways, I was like, I need to get my life back. That's fine. Let's just do it. So, and I asked him, was it going to be invasive? She's like, oh, you're going to be in and out of the hospital. It's going to be minimally invasive. It's going to be laparoscopic surgery, do some small incisions. And you know what? You'll probably stay for, 2 to 3, maybe 4 days, and we're going to release you. You're going to be good to go. So the first thing that went wrong is I actually woke up prematurely from the surgery. I woke up while they're sewing up my intestines. So I'm not sure what they fucked up the anesthesia or something like that. I'm like, I swear to God, because they usually do the surgeries like early in the morning. So I did, had to do a clean out. Then early in the morning, I just remember that I woke up, and it was here in the United States in a very large hospital. I just remember I woke up, like my eyes, and I just remember they're like sewed up. I looked and it was blood everywhere, and I just started screaming because I didn't realize I was going to wake up that early. In so much pain that they had to give me a bunch of morphine and tramadol to put me back to sleep. They had to sedate me because I was in so much pain, but they gave so much that I was just so drugged up in the hospital for the next couple of days. But then I still you're a very good athlete and you're using your stomach, your core muscles 24/7. The first thing I tried to do is kind of sit up out of bed, and I just couldn't sit up. I was like, it's so restrictive. I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. Even when I was all drugged up, I was feeling the pain. I was like, this is really bad. And they're like, oh, just lay low. You're resting. You're recovering. And then they're like, okay, we're going to release you. And I'm like, wait, I haven't even taken a shit yet. I want to make sure this thing's working before you guys release me. And I was like, shouldn't this thing be working? They're like, oh, you have an anxiety attack. You're worrying too much. Do not worry about it. So, we're going to release you. Everything's going to be working fine. It was a successful surgery. I'm like, yeah, it was a successful surgery. I just woke up prematurely. So anyways, they released me, and I started having a bunch of pain for the next couple of weeks, barely minimal bowel movements, and they're very thin, not to give you TMI, but it just shows like how inflamed my intestines were. And then, so it was laparoscopic. Laparoscopic is usually minimally invasive, small incisions, but there's always one larger area. So they call that the anastomosis site in medical terminology. The anastomosis site was about like 2 inches below my belly in a straight line where they did the main incision. That's where they kind of they attached my descending colon right over to the, they kind of remove the sigmoid colon right to the base, basically, right before it gets to the rectum. But anyways, what that 2 inches below my belly button, it started getting very painful. It started getting swollen. And I remember I went for a follow-up like the following week, and I think it was the surgical assistant saw me. I was like, hey, this is getting kind of swollen. Should I be a little worried? And she's like, oh, you know what? That's just hematoma. That was her bullshit excuse. This hematoma. Don't worry about it. You have an anxiety attack. I was like, no. I was like, this is getting swollen. I don't think it should be. It's getting worse. And then she kind of just sent me home. She's like, it's going to go back down. So anyways, 3 days later, it tripled up in size, like to the size of a grapefruit. And I'm not sure if you remember one of the old American movies from like the 1980s, the movie Alien with Sigourney Weaver, where the alien pops up out of the guy's stomach. It was like that crap. So anyways, it got so big that I took some photos and I sent it over to the surgeon, and he's like, get to the ER immediately. You got a major infection. We're going to cut it over. I was like, I knew it. So 3 weeks after they just cut open my intestines and I woke up prematurely, they had to recut open my intestines, and they did not give me any anesthesia. I was awake the whole effing time. So they did some lidocaine injections, but shit, they got so deep and it was so infected that I kind of gave the analogy. I didn't want to move while they're cutting me back open with a scalpel. I was just laying there. So I basically just grabbed onto the bed as tight as I could, and I was biting my tongue to the point I was bleeding my fucking mouth. Anyways, and they had to cut it back open, and they had to drain all the infection and blood out. It was still kind of puffy in there, and I asked him, I was like, are you going to sew it back up? And the doctor, technically this is correct. He's like, well, no, because the major infection came from the inside. If I sew it back up, you're going to have too much moisture. It's going to be a breeding ground for bacteria, and you're just going to get infected again. So what you're going to do is you're going to basically keep the wound open. And I made the analogy. It looks like a hole like 2 inches below my belly, but I was like, this looks like I have a vagina like 2 inches below my belly. But it's like, the hell. But you got to change the gauze basically inside. You got to stick gauze inside the wound and change it 3 times a day. And morning, afternoon, evening. I did that repetitively for a couple of weeks. And they said, don't get any dirt or moisture, like don't get any like bacteria in it. So I was keeping it so clean. I was so hard to move. I was still working too. And I was still, because I never took time off of work, and maybe that's a bad advice of me. I work too much, but anyways. And then even though I took really good care of it, it was so painful, it got infected again. So I had to go back to the hospital a couple weeks later, and they had to recut it open. Same effing thing. No anesthesia, a couple of lidocaine injections, and recut it open. So I was like, so now I built a really good pain tolerance, at least. So that's why I can probably break a few bones and not even realize it. But anyways, it started having more problems, and I started just doing an elimination diet to see what it was caused. I knew I could not handle any nuts and seeds. I was like doing really well cooked vegetables, still having problems. And then I was like, it was towards the end of 2017. And I just remember I was telling the doctor, I was like, this is, I really regret this. I'm so much worse than I was before. And like, I had a life before this, and I think you guys completely ruined my life. And the doctor's like, hey, I got a solution. So, and I can't believe he fucking said this. He's like, you're still having problems. I think we just got to remove all of your intestines. And so right then I knew that the medical industry is full of shit. So I was like, you know what? No way. No effing way. I gave him the middle fingers. I'm like, you ruined my life. I'm going to do some extensive testing because I think something else is wrong with me. and I'm going to look for alternative advice. I'm going to go see a regenerative doctor. I should have done that in the first place, though. Anyways, I remember I did some extensive testing, and I tested positive for Lyme disease and some co-infections. But to this day, I don't think that was a problem. I know a lot of people that get Lyme and co-infections. They can manage it and all that. A zero carb diet or just some hyperbaric oxygen therapy or some ozone therapy or maybe extensive fasting. But anyways, what I want to do, because I was still managing it, I was trying to keep the infections down. But what I decided to do, since it was still painful, I was like, here, I was already a little malnourished. I'm like, I got no choice. I've done some fast before, but let me do a longer fast. I've done like 1 or 2, maybe 3-day fast. And I actually did it like when I was getting sick. I remember I did fasting, but like they had a clinic. But most of the fasting clinics in the United States, I'm not sure how it is in Canada or in Ireland, but these fasting clinics, they're all run by vegans, which I think is the worst thing you could do after a fast is put like insoluble fiber and lectins and phytates and all that crap right on right on your stomach line and right after you just try to let it heal. So anyways, I was like, no, I started looking into the GAPS diet. I'm not sure if you guys remember the GAPS diet. Yeah. I was like, you know what? I was like, bone broth is a healing, but it sounded like it was all focused on meats first and then reintroduced. I was like, meats seem to be the huge, like nourishing. I never was vegan. I was always eating meats, but I was eating other stuff with it, especially when I was bodybuilding. I was eating I was only 155 pounds, which is probably 10, 15 pounds more than I am right now because I was an all natural bodybuilder. The unnatural bodybuilders go to 270, 280. All natural bodybuilders, the most they usually get is like 170, 180. But anyways, I just remember I was like, all right, you know what? I've been eating a lot of meat and I never had a problem with meat. So let's just start it off. So I did a 10-day water fast, and instead of refeeding on like vegetable juices or all this other crap that they give you, I refed on a slow cooked steak, a slow roasted steak, and it felt amazing. And this was going into 2018. I was like, oh my God, that was like the best fast and refeed I've ever had. And I was like, I'm onto something. So I started doing trial and error. I'm like, all right. So I I tried all these meats, steak, chicken, pork, fish, and I remember I still couldn't do dairy, eggs, kind of sensitive, but I was like, the meats are not causing a problem. This is cool. I was like, maybe I just got to stick with meats. But every time I was introducing vegetables, I think it's because my body was so inflamed, it started having a reaction. Okay, either even if it wasn't immediately to the gut, I'd start get some my skin would get flushy and red, or I just start feeling like crap, or just get nauseous. And I remember even coconut oil, which I used to take on my fasted workouts when I was doing like keto, and I would do like a fasted workout with a big refeed post workout. I was still doing coconut oil. I remember coconut oil was burning my mouth. I was like, this is so fucking weird. I was like, holy shit. But then all of a sudden, I just started doing like the fat drippings from the meat, and it wasn't causing problems. Like, all right, I'm onto something. And then since most of my friends, even 7 years after I've been practicing law, most of my friends are still from the fitness community. I hate most attorneys. I fucking hate most attorneys. I don't trust most attorneys for a long reason, okay? So coming from the health industry to the legal industry, I can just tell you, I would never trust most attorneys. And I make it clear that I think most attorneys are actually going to burn in hell. So I'm actually trying to come back to the carnivore and health community, which I've been doing for the past 7 years, to give myself less time in purgatory. But anyways, most of my friends from the fitness industry, they're like, hey, you know what? Chris, there's some people that just do an all meat diet, and that's all they can eat. I think it's called the carnivore diet. Maybe you should look into it. And that's where I started looking into it in 2018. I Skyped with, I had a phone call with Michaela Peterson before she became popular. So this is what she was just doing phone calls. She wasn't even doing she was doing some YouTubes and all that. And then, but she was just doing phone calls with she wasn't doing and so anyways, she's like, hey, don't use any other cooking oils. The only oil you're going to use is tallow. And I didn't even know tallow back then. Like 2018, I was like, what the hell is tallow? Beef fat? Where the hell am I going to find beef fat? So I started just doing the Sprouts and Whole Foods here in the United States. And then I started ordering online and bulk. But I was doing a tablespoon of tallow. I was like, this feels good. I was like, you know what? I'm onto something. Let's fucking, screw vegetables. If I have to eat only meat for the rest of my life, let's do it. But I want to get more into it. Okay. I want to know what types of meats. I wish I would include organs. So then I did a Skype with Dr. Baker before he became popular in 2018. And I still speak with him today, just a couple of weeks ago. But anyways, he kind of gave me an analogy. I think he likes a little bit more protein than fat. And then I asked him, I was like, you know what? I've been working this entire time. I need to take some time off. And I want to just stay with a group that eats nothing but meat for 1 or 2 weeks. I asked him about the Paleo Medicina group, which is Dr. Sophia Clemens, based out of Budapest, Hungary, also known as the ICMNI. I think it's International Center of Medical Nutrition Intervention. But anyways, I asked him, he's like, yeah, that'd be a great option. So Thanksgiving Day, and this is where I went complete carnivore, is why I went over there to Budapest, Hungary on Thanksgiving Day just to get away from family, because my family was part of the problem. They're the ones saying, you're an idiot. You're not listening to your doctor, and you should only listen to your doctor. But they're so, it's almost talking to a brick wall. I was like, do you realize what they just did to me? Like for the past year, they wrecked up my intestines and they did cut it open. They screwed it up. They wouldn't recognize that. And they also wouldn't talk with me when I didn't get vaccinated. We'll talk about that too. But anyways, so I'm very anti-vax. I think I'm more the anti-vax attorney than the carnivore lawyer before coming out. But anyways, when I went over to Dr. Sophia Clemens, I remember I was taking some supplements. I was taking some multivitamins. You know, I was taking like some extra like B vitamins, stuff like that. And I remember when I went over there, I met with her, and she's like, "Okay, if you take any supplements, I want you to throw them out." I was like, "Really? I brought this from the United States." She's like, "No, all you're gonna do is meat, salt, and water. That's it. So yeah, and like in fat basically, but the fat's gonna come from the meat." And I was like, "Well, what would it, I still have restrictions. I still have scar tissue. Sometimes I take some ginger or some like prokinetics to like keep going." She's like, "No, you're gonna have plenty of fat on our diet, because the paleo ketogenic diet, which is the PKD diet, it's actually more fat than any other carnivore based diet. It's 80% fat. The average keto carnivore diet is 70% fat, 80% fat. So I'm all fat, because when you realize quality fat was the main nourishing thing that a lot of people are missing." So, and she was completely right. I remember I ate too much pork fat trimmings. But I ate like the whole plate. I probably ate like 4,000 calories of just fat. Yeah, went right through me. But then I was like, all right, that was a little too much. So let's back it off a little bit. And I was backing off, but I was like, wait, I don't have to take. And it was, but you know what? I started feeling amazing. I just remember like the inflammation on my face, everything went down. I was like, I feel amazing. So I stayed over there for a little over a week. But I just remember that I was like, this is the easiest thing. If I'm too clogged up or something like that, if I'm constipated, just eat some fat and it just goes right there. Fat and salt is usually the easiest combo. That's why I'm telling people, like, don't take all your laxatives. Just eat a stick of butter or something like that. Just, anyways, but when I came back to the United States, I wanted to promote it, because especially because I became a dietetic technician even before I had these surgeries, since I've always been going to school nonstop, even after passing the bar exam. And I just remember that I was always promoted. I was like, because they're always telling you like they're demonizing meat. Even when I was going to my dietetics programs, they're always demonized, like reduce your red meat intake. And now I was like, you know what? Red meat just saved my life. And I think we need to promote this. So I started supporting American farmers. I'm like, and then I got connected with the carnivore groups. I wasn't so much on Facebook. I was more on LinkedIn, but there's still some carnivores on LinkedIn. But anyways, I was speaking out for them. But then what really got me to run for Congress is actually the lockdown and the vaccine. So someone who has an obvious bias against pharmaceuticals, myself, just from personal experience, I got so screwed over. When they started forcing it, and people started, like, not just at a lot of companies and stores here in the United States or even clinic, they wouldn't even speak with you if you weren't vaccinated. And then I have a lot of friends who are government employees and healthcare workers that came from the fitness industry. So a lot of people from the fitness industry, they went to government healthcare, or they went to they were government employees like law enforcement. They're getting forced to get vaccinated. And then I was the only one speaking out. So no other, and this is why I hate most attorneys, no other attorneys had the balls to speak out against the vaccines when I was mainly in LA County. And some people would agree, like, oh, I don't want to get vaxxed. I'm not sure about that, But I was like, hey, well, speak out against it. And none of them wanted to speak out because they didn't want to lose their clients. I'm like, you have no fucking testicles. You're not going to speak out. It's something that's actually going to be harming. You have no idea. We have no idea of the efficacy behind these vaccines. When I spoke out against it, I remember people try to report me to the California State Bar and the Texas State Bar, because I'm licensed in both states. And I just remember they called me like a menace to the nation's health or something, just set up, because I was like, we should not be forced. And I wasn't even talking about the health issues, as we know, like the blood clots, the Bell's palsy, liver failure, you can name it, like, A through Z. I was talking about, the ethical is that you guys are forcing government mandated healthcare on the American public, which is supposed to be one of the freest countries in the world, right? I was saying this is completely, counterintuitive to like the founding fathers' like intent for our country. and I spoke out. Anyways, they dismissed all these complaints because I was kind of like stated, I kind of stayed with the California State Bar. I was like, I have my First Amendment freedoms to kind of speak on my freedom of speech, what I reasonably believe. And I'm not even talking about the health constitution. I said, I cited the Constitution verbatim. I was like, this is completely unconstitutional. They dismissed it, but that motivated me. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I know that everybody in Congress, most people in Congress, they have a background in law, which I already have. But the other ones have like public policy. They have like a bachelor's degree in public policy. And I was like, hey, look, I got a couple of bachelors. I get a dietetics degree. I got a master's degree. You know what? How about this? Instead of getting like a bachelor's in public policy, I'm going to get a PhD in public policy. I'm going to become Dr. Brandlin because I'm going to know exactly what's going to be the best for the American people because it's a crossover with public health. So I made that decision in 2021. I started the PhD in 2022. I'm finishing off my fast oral defense. I just got my study approved to become Dr. Brandlin in like the next week. And I just turned 40. And I'm actually, if you guys watch, I'm still in decent shape as a 40-year-old attorney. Yeah. So anyways, so I met with Team Kennedy 2024 last year. I remember I was like, I want to run for Congress in the future. I wasn't planning on running in 2026, to be honest with you. I was planning on running in 2028 or 2030 because it's every 2 years for the midterms and the main elections, or 2032 because I'm just turning 40. I'm mostly Italian. I have never even visited my family in Italy. I'm like a disgrace. So I have some distant relatives. I was like, I want to kind of get away. Maybe I take like a 3-month hiatus, like after I get my PhD. And then so I met with Team Kennedy. They're like, no, you're a perfect prospect for November 2026. We think, let's give you a campaign manager. I went to inauguration, met with Bobby Kennedy, and I met with everyone. They're like, we need someone to embrace the Maha movement. And you are very outspoken, and we like you because you're very anti-vax. And we need more people anti-vax. So I made that commitment. I made the announcement for my candidacy this January. I've been having a bunch of fun for the past 7 months on the campaign, and since I'm still an adrenaline junkie, you'll see me doing a lot of stunts. And now I'm doing a professional bull riding contest next month in Texas.
Right on. Yeah. And then are you going to eat the bull?
Yeah. Okay. Not just that. I think what they
ride
do
it.
Bulls, I think they tie the testicles of the bull to like get him all riled up. So after that, if I can ride the bull, I'm going to snap off his testicles. I'm going to say, hey, here's some Rocky Mountain oysters for everybody, right? I think that's what it's called, Rocky Mountain oysters.
And if it means anything, that's a guy I want to vote for sure.
Yeah. Donald only has balls, but he eats them. Yeah. That sounds wrong, but that's okay.
Wow, man. What a story. I mean, there's so much to talk about there because, and firstly, man, wow, like we need people that step up like you, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing that left wing.
Oh yeah, I got completely like I already started becoming a Republican like far right wing like during law school because I started like in law school you learn political economics and you learn a lot where your tax dollars are going. And then I was more of like a party, like a libertarian during like college because I was fraternity president. I was just I'm not going to tell you everything I did, but let's just say I had a lot of fun. You put females and alcohol together with running a fraternity, it creates a bunch of problems, right? But anyways, but when you start realizing responsibility and obligations when you have to grow up, you're like, yeah, I am definitely going to be completely far right. And I think everybody's starting to have a good wake-up call too. But then I think the biggest problem is a lot of my colleagues, and this is why I'm glad that I started running my own practice, because when I was part of a former partnership in my original firm, they didn't like the fact that I was talking so much shit. They're like, we don't like the end. So I actually chose to open up my own firm during the lockdown because I was completely fed up. I was like, I don't want anybody to have it, because even though I was equal partners with a different firm, I'm like, no one's going to tell me what to fucking do. Like, this is going to be and I don't give a shit if I'm going to be losing some clients because they're a little concerned about me being anti-vax or like I don't wear a mask in my office. And when when I have people like they come in and they're like, oh, can we wear? I was like, no, this is my office. I'm not going to put on the stupid chin diapers. Research has already proven that it doesn't do anything. And actually, research has actually proven that it actually accelerates dementia. So you're actually not only do you look dumber wearing the mask, you're actually becoming dumber right in my office. Yeah. And the same people that are in there, and I'm not sure if it is in Canada or Ireland, but you still see a lot of people driving around their own cars with a mask by themselves. My analogy is they are the same type of people who sleep in their own beds by themselves with a condom, That's how bad and stupid they are.
Well, yeah, it's a pretty good analogy, right? Like, I mean, it's just breathing in your own
actually,
CO2.
one of my colleagues, I should credit to my friend Lenny. He's one of the trainers for the Los Angeles Clippers. And I remember I was doing some training sessions because I always had like some orthopedic injuries. And we were talking about the mask. Like, man, I was like, Lenny, man, I had to put a mask on your stupid studio again. He's like, just when you get in, but you see me, you can take it off. But he's like, I agree, man. It's like, when you see people wearing it like 24/7, they probably sleep with a condom on. It's those type of really bad people. But yeah, people are becoming so stupid, but they won't wake up. And I think the problem is they're so easily manipulated by the government and all this mainstream media that they see something on TV and they're like, oh my God. And, you know, and I think like it was in China, like people started doing they started testing for COVID with anal swabs. And like all these Chinese people like lined up and bent over backwards, like, oh, test me out. I'm like, this is how bad it got. Yeah, they took it in the ass just because they got manipulated.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because it's over here as well. Like I see so many people in their cars and they're in the cars on their own and they're wearing masks.
Yeah, no,
like,
it doesn't make still 5 years.
Doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Like why are you driving around the car on your own with a mask on?
Yeah, that's
crazy.
And they're still getting boosters and stuff like that. And there's always a new Omicron variant or something like that. And I don't know. It's just people. And I think it's so like obvious when you see like all the people that are getting really sick. They're the ones that actually got vaccinated. And
isn't it amazing? Like what we're nearly 3-4 years on from COVID, and people are still getting vaccines.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, now we're starting to reveal all the damage. And I actually, by the way, I was mainly on LinkedIn for 14 years straight, okay? Ever since I passed my very first firm, they required everybody to get a LinkedIn account. I wasn't so much on, like, I just started Instagram this year, 2025. And then I just started, like, X too. And then, but I was mainly on, and I was a little bit on Facebook just to get connected with some carnivore folks, just to watch some of their videos and watch some reels. But I was mainly on LinkedIn, but I got banned from LinkedIn because they didn't like all my anti-vax comments. And I got permanently banned. And I think the last thing I said men cannot get pregnant, and they banned me for misinformation. They said it was misinformation that men can get pregnant. This is how stupid the left has become, or at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate the term now because it's not really true. Like it's a new other side.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say left. It's just people that just.
But I mean, obviously that's what we call it. But yeah, man, it's unbelievable how. But like, I mean, that was my thing during the pandemic too. Is like, I mean, I really want to get into your medical stuff, but it's important, this stuff as well. And I was
it's gonna happen again too. They're gonna pull some other bullshit.
Oh yeah,
you guys have to realize that we don't have full control. Even though we have Bobby Kennedy knocking around, like he's not, and he doesn't have full control because the pharmaceutical companies still have more control over him than Congress.
Really?
Because pharmaceutical companies, they fund 2/3 of Congress in the United States.
Yeah.
Democrats and Republicans, more Democrats than Republicans, but still, it's both parties. They own it, and this is how more people speak out.
But that's what I was going to say, Christopher. We need people like yourself, at least in your country, people are actually questioning the system. Whereas in my country, everybody's just going with the crowd, pretty much.
It's like, aren't you gonna have McGregor run for president over there?
Like he's a clown.
I know he's too crazy. I can never tell if he's like on how many drugs or not. I used to, I always loved him as a fighter. I'm still gonna respect him because he's one of the best fighters in the history of the UFC. But man, watching the last couple of years, like, oh man, it's hard to watch.
Well, it's really cool, Christopher, to hear from your side. From you're an academic. You've been in the system, and how you're speaking out against it, and with logic and reason, and just. You can see the critical thinking coming off you, right? Like, and I think that's the lost art. And, we always go back into politics where I'm not a really big fan of politics, but I have to now because we don't know what the hell.
But now when you realize, when you look into it, it affects your everyday life. It affects the prices of your groceries, but it also affects how your kids are treated at school, what they're teaching your kids at school, which is completely going haywire. Over here, but they also, it controls all of your healthcare, and it controls what food you're able to buy from your American farmers and
Yeah.
what the prices are set.
Yeah.
So I actually have like an algorithm or kind of a plan to reduce the prices of meat for everybody in the United States if I'm elected in Congress. I actually
Yes.
Yeah.
it's not just going to be subsidies. It's other methods. So
Yeah.
Well-
not only do I want to make America great again, I want to make America healthy again. I want to make meat affordable again, and I think a lot of people can at least
Hey,
agree
man,
with that. So
well, I
I
hope
hope
that-
someone with some actual balls to speak out and actually make some changes and be more affordable to eat like the best sources of meat.
Absolutely.
But
We're
we need
all
a
behind.
lot more support coming to the farmers, and the farmers in the United States have a lot of restrictions on how they can operate right now.
Of course, yeah.
And there's a
Yeah.
huge monopoly going. So as you may know, Bill Gates and like some large kind of investors, they're all buying out all the farmland for their lab-grown meat factories. We need to put a stop on that. No one's doing it. And also we're having China and other countries actually owning a lot of American farmland. But this is making it almost impossible for American farmers, hardworking farmers, to actually make a living. So a lot of farmers are basically filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're the same, Krista. We have a farmer coming on tomorrow, and he's in the very, very same position. He's scared shitless about his business at the moment. He's having sleepless nights because it could be any day now where he loses business. And it's ridiculous, and it's ridiculous. And I'm always saying to people, to Irish people in this country, like, listen, support your local farmers. Forget about the shops. Go to the butchers, go to the local farmer, and support these people.
Farm to table is the best way to support, because a lot of times, even if you're buying like from, I mean, I like Sprouts because they buy it from like a large kind of regenerative farm, but if you really want to support the farmers and actually keep them and actually indirectly reduce the prices of meat, because one of the main things besides the subsidies and changing the different regulations and policies that can affect the American farmers from expanding their farms is you just support them. You buy directly from the farmers.
Yeah.
Whatever country you're in, you buy directly from the farmers. And I buy from over a dozen different farms. Actually, I think from this year, I think I bought from like 25 different farms, because I'm not just picking one. I'm like, support all of them. I was like, hey, you got different line of meats. I want to get some. So here's another thing. You can mainly, if you're doing a lion diet, you only do ruminant meats, four-legged animals, right? Beef, like, venison, elk and all that. But, there's a lot of people that eat chicken and pork that are not part of it, but chicken and pork is not as nutrient dense, and it's more inflammatory because chicken and pork, basically pigs and chickens, they have a monogastric stomach system where just like humans, where they cannot break down all the nutrients. Cows have like a multiple different stomach system. I think there's six different stomach, but anyways, four exactly, where they can actually break down. Like if you get a cow is corn fed, grain fed, it's not going to be that inflammatory. It's not that much different. But if you get a chicken or a pig that is fed corn or soy, it gets very inflammatory. And that's where you see the omega-6 3:6 ratio way off the charts.
It's very simple. If what they get fed, we eat. And the beautiful thing about the ruminants.
And that's why I felt so good in Hungary, because in Budapest, Hungary, when I was staying with Dr. Sophia Clemens, all the pork they love pork, and I think they actually. I was told that Hungary and Spain have like the best pork in the world or anything. But anyways, they didn't feed any of their pigs corn or soy. It was like acorn, squash, and all this, and then they would feed insects. They would forage like naturally, which they should do.
No doubt, and I mean that's where it's unbelievable to because we see on the political stage, like on the national, on TV and bullshit. I mean, I am so far removed from mainstream media now because it's just nonsense. But when you decided to, like, did you have the like you said you met with Kennedy and they wanted you to run in 2026?
I met with some of his team. I got like a brief handshake with him. Like that's it. Pretty much. And then once he got sworn in, like no one could get a hold of him anyways.
Of course.
Like even his own team members. But when I kind of went over the districts, I was like, hey, look, I've mainly been transitioned over to Las Vegas. I actually own more property in Las Vegas, and I have more investment companies in Vegas than I do in my own law office. And they said don't even waste your time with California. You got the biggest voter fraud. It's too far left, and not just that, it's way too expensive. And it's going to be kind of like a screwed up state for quite a while. Vegas is a good. Nevada is becoming a very red state, and not just that. We're having less voter fraud issues when it comes to Nevada compared to that. But but we're hoping that the rest of the 50 states will kind of wake up. But I think we have.
Well, hey, I might be the 51st. I'm coming to see you.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Are you getting a bunch of blue-haired liberals from like the United States coming up over to Canada?
I don't know. Even they're scared of Canada right now, man. It's so bad. It's unbelievable, right? It's just all the stuff that California is kind of going through. We're dealing with on a national level, and it's just ridiculous. And you want to talk about grocery prices, man? Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, actually, I haven't been I was in Vancouver like a long time ago, and I think I went to Montreal as like a layover or something when I went to Europe or something like that. But I just remember it was a lot more expensive than back then too. So I can kind of understand that you guys would be breaking an arm and a leg just to put a piece of meat on your fucking.
Well, man, I eat 5 things. Like, I've been eating 5 things for like 5 years, and nice. I have seen in real time everything go up at least 50-60%, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not making
especially during the lockdown. And I think it was almost part of their agenda when they kind of started deep. Like here, it was actually Kamala Harris and Biden. They're actually telling everybody to reduce the red meat, and they were also claiming that red meat and the farms were actually contributing to COVID, and they actually were able to manipulate all the people to say, "Oh my God, I can't eat meat. I don't want to get COVID." And I'm like, "You gotta be just." The intelligence hit completely rock bottom with them.
And I mean, just like it's so nice to hear, and good for you for because I mean, I'm a big believer in silence is complicity, and I mean, when you're part of a machine, to jump out and be that spoke in the wheel, man, it's awesome. I wish I was in your district because you'd have my vote. Well,
I appreciate it, man. But a lot of other attorneys don't like me speaking out too. But and as I publicly state, most of them are going to hell. But a lot of them, I was just so unimpressed. I was just so disappointed. Like none of them had the balls to speak out even the guys that agreed with me. I'm like, they're like, no, I don't want to lose my clients. And I put like a Trump portrait in my office. Like, oh my God, that's really dangerous. You should not do that. I was like, wait, didn't you vote for? He's like, yeah, but I would never tell my clients that. I'm like, that means you have no balls. Okay, so that's good. Yeah. You want to make your money and all that. Yeah, but guess what? You're going to go home when you go to bed every night. You're going to know that you're a spineless, weak bitch.
Well, I'm the same over here, Christopher. Like you can imagine what it's like over in this country. Like if you mention like heart disease, people automatically mention saturated fats. Yeah. Everybody's from the left. Everybody's speaking about big pharma. They're all saying how amazing these people are. I was only listening to a podcast there it was a podcast, and these people were absolutely convinced that medicine has saved people in the last 50 years. And it was driving me.
Well, I just did some new reels. I'm like, what? Pfizer's been around for 175 years. They not cured one single disease.
Yeah.
And they earn like 1.4 trillion, and not just that. People didn't realize that pharmaceuticals are the third leading cause of death. They call it medication related or like overdose or adverse reaction related or something like that. But I was like, no, it's from pharmaceuticals.
It's nice to have you from your side, because like this is my logic too. It's like which companies are the most sued?
And I know all the lawsuits. I actually did. I did like 40 different reels like in the last couple of months, but I actually had one reel. I'll repost the reel today, and I'll give you I'll tag you on it. But I discussed one of the problems that we have, because all these major companies don't even sue them for money right now. What we need to do, because they have so much money to pay them off. I talked about all the biggest settlements, multi-billion-dollar settlements on all these companies. They pay them off. It's nickels and dimes.
And they're hushed.
Yeah. So 100%. What you should be doing from a legal perspective, instead of seeking monetary damages, you seek what's called injunctive relief from the federal court. This is called specific performance. You actually restrict a company from distributing its products to the American public. And you can do this based on the research and based on the findings. And you would actually have like some detailed clinical trials showing because what happens is all the pharmaceutical companies, they have the most money, so they buy out they basically acquire all these clinical trials, but they never talked about the side effects. Okay, but then if we get some more federal funds, like, hey, let's focus on some of the dangers of these. So look, if I am put into Congress, I can make the recommendation for a lot of people. It's like, hey, where should our tax dollars go? How about we start funding a clinical trial that says one person will eat nothing but a ketogenic animal-based diet. It doesn't have to be completely carnivore. A ketogenic animal-based diet. No pharmaceuticals whatsoever for 60 days, 2 months. And then we'll have some guy that just eats a standard American diet, the SAD diet, and he's going to be taking his routine pills for 60 days. Do their blood markers. I guarantee you, the one that's going to be on the pharmaceuticals in the set, they're going to completely 100%. Fall apart. And this is going to wake people up like, oh my God, the people that had the best results are the ones that did not take any pharmaceuticals. If we publish that, is that going to wake some people up? Yeah, but they're going to try to shut me down. So,
honestly, it's just common sense, just pure common sense.
Well, what you're saying too is it's like I have a huge problem with lifestyle medication. That just the term coined lifestyle medication to me screams, what do we got to do here? You got to change your lifestyle.
What they're doing is they're creating a euphemism to make it sound a lot better than what it really is. They never discuss all the consequences, and that's what there's all these things that you kind of learn in sales. Soon I'm kind of realize that too. But yeah, I mean, the good thing about my PhD in public policy, crossover with public health, I do nothing but I probably studied a couple thousand. My dissertation study is actually on the vaccines, by the way, too. Awesome. I'm studying not only I don't really focus on like the health effects, but I studied the policy effects, like the hospital shortages, that they couldn't actually treat cancer patients or do physical therapy because all the hospitals were restricting only to COVID, which was complete bullcrap. And I also discussed about the hospital shortages, firing all of the hospital employees where people cannot get treatment. So that's my extra dissertation. And I actually go back to vaccines from the last 250 years, from 1776, when George Washington made the recommendation for the Surgeon General to use smallpox inoculation to save the soldiers. Back then, it actually worked, but it was an inoculation. It was different. It was a different kind of procedural effect. But now you got Bill Gates, soy boobs Bill Gates, who has bitch tits, who has no medical background whatsoever, being the spokesperson for vaccines. You think people would wake up, but no, I guess they're not waking up.
No kidding, man. And what's kind of, well, obviously you're clearly for pro free speech, but how's the pushback with your social media and your story? How are you feeling? Because like from our aspect, like Mark and I get strikes all the time. Like we talk about something or the video gets really suppressed.
Well, I told you I got banned from LinkedIn. But one thing, look at the reason why I'm allowed to do my dissertation. My dissertation with my school is Walden University. It's actually based out of Nippiapolis, and it's actually more like a liberal college, but they're allowing me to give my dissertation because I'm not studying the health effects. I'm actually discussing the policy, the ethical issues behind a government mandated healthcare. So my focus is on ethical issues besides government and mandated healthcare, what you should consider and how it kind of contravenes your independent freedom still. Yeah. And I said, like, hey, what should be a criteria to be more balanced and have like a two-way street of respect?
Yeah, no shit. There was an ethics professor like in Canada during the pandemic. They got fired. They got fired for talking ethics. Like she was like,
I was told like Canada, and I think was it Australia at one point got really like censoring and and I think some of my friends in Germany told me that it was a lot worse than the United States too. So I had a couple of friends in Germany that told me it was like you couldn't even. You had to wear a mask outdoors, even like it was like a huge town and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, Canada's like that. And so I want to get back, if you don't mind, into the medical gaslighting, because I think this is probably, funny enough, something just happened to a friend of mine the other day. But when you're put you said something very powerful. You get put in a position where you're in the office, you're in pain, you're arguably dying. And they push a procedure or a system or a thing that you must do. Yeah. And how did you just like your foresight just say, no, enough, I'm gonna stop?
Because it was already in the back of my head, but I don't want to blame my family completely, but they're always like, they always say to like your doctor is going to help you. That's what they're there for. Okay. We've always had doctors around history. And like, I got a family of attorneys and judges, like uncles and like father basically. So they're completely like really just strict on like, follow your own protocol. But I think it's me just because I came from the health industry with like the only person from my family that before I became an attorney actually came from the health industry, and I have more respect for the health. I have a lot more respect for the health and fitness industry than any other fucking attorney and judge. I stated that completely to a judge in her face. Of course, she didn't like it. She didn't sanction me yet, but I'm not going to shut my mouth.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, but no, I think it's just my background, just being in health and fitness. It's almost a wake-up call, and I think for some people like me, it took to cut open my intestines to wake up and realize the downfalls of conventional medicine. So that's what it took to wake me the up, right? I think some people unfortunately need it, but a lot of people don't realize it. But I think what I had a, I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying this in the right term, but let's say I had a calling from God to come back. Like, you're not set to be an attorney the rest of your life. You got to come back and help out the health, which you learned. Because I was so much happier as a trainer. Not just that, I felt like I was helping people for a living. And even though I was working just as many hours as a trainer because it was a full time, and I paid for my own law school with my own business, and that's when I was competing. But even though it was like sometimes 12, 14-hour days, I love what I was doing. Right now. Yeah, I mean, you're just known for screwing people all day.
Jesus. Now another question for you.
Sure.
So this whole process of like when you got the first initial surgery and you woke up, how much were you on antibiotics the whole time? Like, because I can't see, or was it just pain meds? Like, what was?
I'm not sure what they're giving me during the surgical procedure, but I think before the surgery, I think I was laying off the antibiotics because it was just, and by I think that by that time I was just taking the laxatives and corticosteroids, but I took the antibiotics for almost a year, at least actually. I think it was more than a year actually. Now that I think about it, yeah. But I think of that I was just in so much pain that I was like, I just wanted to keep moving, basically.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks. Is like, you're pain and like being like an exercise freak your entire life, and all of a sudden, like, you can barely move because you're so like malnourished and inflamed. It sucked.
And was there any kind of like, did you think about any legal recourse for this situation?
I should have. And I'll tell you one thing is one of my colleagues who just retired, when they were referring me to colorectal surgeons, it was actually his neighbor. And I actually co-counseled with this other attorney. We shared cases together. And, you have your own community, like, especially when we're mainly practicing in LA County. I actually thought about it. I waited past the statute of limitations. I think I probably should have done. The only thing is I was like, you know what? I don't want to be known as, the main attorney that sues people's friends. Like, so, like,
Okay.
if you're their attorney, like, oh, yeah, don't give him any, like, don't refer him anybody because he's going to sue your neighbor. But also when I spoke I'm doing a lot of medical malpractice now as a sign of principle.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people need that too. It's still an uphill battle though, because the courts actually prefer the doctors over the patients.
For sure. Well, I mean, there's a standard of care for a reason, right? If they follow the standard of care, their liability goes.
Yeah, but still, like, they said, look, you know what, when you sign a lot of waivers at the hospital, you assume all the risk. And now if you're an attorney and you're making a medical malpractice case against a doctor, they're going to say, if you understood all these forms, that there's always a risk of infections and all that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really black and white whether I'd really prevail. So would I want to spend all the money like retaining experts? Because I would have to retain the experts, because I had a colleague that was talking about taking the medical malpractice case with me. But she's like, no, you're going to need to front the money for the experts. It'll probably be $40,000 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And actually, that's the big thing about medical malpractice is if you take it on a contingency, the attorneys usually front a lot of the costs. But I would be one prosecutor on my own, so I would actually have to retain my own experts. And that's why sometimes, like for contingency cases, personal injury and all that, you would actually front a lot of money. Sometimes wait like 3 to 4 years and then finally get all your money back. That's why practicing law has got a lot of risk if you don't. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it just goes to show that like the bureaucracy and all the red tape and who's funding who and who's got the it's not always just I did this, I get to sue them, or you know what I mean. There's so much.
Yeah, no, it's the standard of care is actually levitated the fact that they actually they give a lot more credit and credibility and reputation to the doctors over the patients. They do that in all the courts, especially California. So California, they do favor employees over employers. They favor tenants over landlords. But when it comes to healthcare, they favor the doctors and the hospitals over the patients. It is so clear.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you're doing the right thing by, you're trying to bypass the system and try and fight against the system as opposed to just those individual battles, which is, we need more of you, man. And that's true. Like, I mean, I see all these people, especially in Canada, you can just see the gutlessness. You can see they're not leaders. They're just, we call them members of parliament.
Just following the crowd, Tony. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're afraid to speak out because they don't want to be insulted by others. They want to be questioned by others. And some of them, they're afraid of losing their business. But sometimes you got to put your integrity over a dollar bill. And that's where I think I'm like, Look, I'm definitely losing a lot of money for my campaign I'm spending because I'm taking time off of work to run a campaign. I don't give a shit. I'd actually think that there's going to be a better light at the end of the tunnel, so I'm willing to invest the money because
100%.
I think everybody's going to be blessed, and I think personally God's going to bless me if I do the right thing.
Well, you only need to look at Casey Means. Look where she started.
Yeah.
Look where she is, and look where she is right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and they're all part of the Maha team, and I think it's just logic, right? Like it's what I appreciate too is getting the chance to be able to speak your side, because that's something that's been hammered on lately. Is like you speak something about an uncomfortable or an inconvenient truth, and all of a sudden you're a heretic, you're blacklisted, even though you're a very educated being who has done the things. And all of a sudden now you're crazy, and it's interesting how.
But you know what? You gotta swallow your pride. You know what's right, and let's just say, for personal experience, my family would not let me have Thanksgiving with them because I wasn't vaccinated. Put that in your shoes.
Yeah, no, I have a similar thing. We won't get into it, but yeah, I feel it. I've just and that was the biggest takeaway for me was like, is the world going insane? Like nobody thinking. And that was the scariest part.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm really hoping that this never happens again in the future.
Yeah, and no doubt. And so you've got the midterms when for you?
November of 2026, but I still have to win the Republican primary, which is June of next year.
Okay.
So. And how do you think you're gonna get on, Christopher?
I think I have a very good chance. People, I wouldn't say they're all anti-vax, but there's other Republican candidates that still they're aligned with some of my beliefs. So, and one of them actually, I don't think he's completely aligned. There's one guy with a lot of money, but he's been in video games his entire career. I'm like, so you've been in, I always say like people make a lot of money in the video game industry. I'm like, so you're basically producing future pedophiles and you think you're going to be the best person to run the Congress. I'm like, but he has no other background. I'm like, I'm a pretty diverse son of a bitch, at least I would kind of consider that.
And I really like the way that what you're kind of running on, or your standpoint is it's directly affected you, which I hope people can see that, because medical freedom, my body, my choice, whatever way you want to go about it. When you're put in a situation like you were in, your life is on the line, and hopefully with you doing what you're doing, you can stop that from happening. Because I think there's so many people that are in that situation that you were in that doctors in the potential life-saving surgery, if you will, and then they get pushed into that corner. Then their stories aren't told or aren't shared.
That's what I was going to say. At least you guys are being given the chance now. There's no more pushback anymore.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, now we have a different voice.
But of course, like
we've been listening to this voice we've been listening to this same voice for years now, and now we have yourself coming in, and it's like, okay, well, I'm questioning things now. It's not going right. This is what happened to me.
Yeah,
you guys can make a choice now. You can either go this way or you can go that way.
Yeah,
great.
And I love it how it's like, we haven't even really got into the carnivore side of things, but what do you eat? What's your diet like right now? What do you eat?
Actually, I haven't. You know what I've been doing? I actually show the videos that I actually prefer, if you can get a clean source, I grind my own meat and eat it raw. Or I'll get a filet mignon. Like, if I ever go out like on a date or something like that, on like a steak dinner, I prefer like a filet mignon as rare as possible. We call it black and blue Pittsburgh style. Quick sear on both sides. And the good thing about the filet mignon, it's pricier, but it's so tender that it's not going to be gristly like the other steaks that it literally melts in your mouth. That's my preferred. But sometimes during the day, if I want to eat a little bit more before a workout, I actually buy corn-free, soy-free chicken from a couple of the farmers over here, and I get bulk,
awesome.
Like 20 or 30 pounds at a time, and I'll just do that for lunch and eat the skin with it, because that animal fat, if it's from a corn-free chicken, it's actually got a better omega-3 6 pounds. They actually call it, the farm that I get it from, they call it omega-3 chicken.
Okay.
It's all corn. It's all soy-free, corn-free. But yeah, but the steak at night, it's usually raw. Or what I'll do a slow roasted steak. I never like to overcook a steak. I think it's almost insulting to overcook a steak, right? You fry it. I was like, oh my God, what'd you do to it? Yeah. But I realized I actually digest it. And if you overcook a steak, the rendered fat will actually go right through you a little bit too much too. So I learned that eating raw fat, I actually eat every day raw bone marrow.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's good. I mean, I know people like it's funny that we talked about the digestive standpoint, but I find like the harder fat, like, not liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're more soothing and they're less likely to kind of get malabsorbed. One of the other things is you get small trimmings of suet, beef suet, the kidney fat.
Perfect.
That is like the most nourishing thing you can do for your gut.
High stearic acid for all the people that want to be burning fat too. It's really good for you. That's stearic acid. And I find suet actually is it's the least tasteful beef fat, if you will. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, it is tasteless. It's almost like eating Play-Doh or something.
Yeah. And how many times? So you eat a couple times a day. And how long have you been?
I usually do like twice a day, and then sometimes I'll do fasting when I travel, and then when I travel, I'll eat a bigger dinner or steak dinner or stuff like that. Usually, we have these meetups or these functions. Like I'm going to like the Healing Humanity meetup this weekend, and we have it at a steakhouse. So what I'll do is I'll fast for maybe 36 hours, sometimes 48. But that refeed meal, I'll slowly eat probably 3 to 4, sometimes 5 pounds of steak.
Awesome.
I'm only 145 pounds, so that's why I try to tell people that. How are you eating all that fat? You're gonna get so fat, and I get like someone that's like 300 pounds. Some of us, you're really that stupid. Okay, I got you. Really, fat's gonna get you. It's just like walking proof that fat's not gonna get you fat, but they won't wake up.
And obviously, we want to respect your time, Christopher. And but I have to ask you before. So, was there one conversation when you were in the hospital dealing or the doctors getting bounced around with infections and stuff? Was there one conversation that the medical system had with you about nutrition and diet?
No, not one single effing thing. And this is why I made so many reels about the fact that the average doctor spends 19.6 hours total on nutrition during their entire medical school career. And this was actually researched and proven with all the medical institutions when they reviewed all of the curriculum. And that's the most prestigious medical schools. So if you go to the average school, I think Dr. Barrett was telling me that his medical school, they probably did less. They probably did like 10 hours total.
Yeah.
Well, the average personal trainer knows a lot more about nutrition than the average doctor, and I have researched this to a T.
So this is future congressman, future doctor, carnivore lawyer, Christopher Brandlin saying the truth right now. I love it because, that's the one thing that we all know this, but no one really takes it in. 19 hours, I think, is the average that a medical
They don't know jack shit. How's that?
Yeah.
They're taught primarily pharmacology. That's the main curriculum in all medical schools.
And just to put that into perspective with people, we've just talked an hour. So we're talking about nutrition and stuff that's worked an hour. So 19 more of these conversations. Imagine. Right? Christopher, I would love to have you back on for part 2 because there's so much I wanted to get into, but I really do want to respect your time. And hopefully when we see you, maybe it might be Dr. Christopher Brandlin next time we see you.
It should be in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. So, yeah.
But
I want to do it before I ride the bull on September 27th, because if I break my neck, it's going to be really hard to do my last.
You will not. I'm putting it out there. You will not. We need you, my friend. You are one of the good ones that we need to give you. And that reminds me, please, everybody, if you're hearing this, share this. This is real life. Somebody who's trying to get into the system and ruffle some feathers, make some noise, not be silent. All the things that we really preach and hopefully, trying to give somebody hope where they may be in a pile of darkness. And Christopher, thank you so much for joining us. And how do people find you, follow you, and
Well, since I got permanently banned from LinkedIn for saying men cannot get pregnant, I'm now mainly on Facebook, Instagram, and X. But I also got my campaign site, chrisbrandlin.com, and I'm going to be posting I'm hosting a couple of meetups. I actually, even though I'm in LA on a couple of days a week, I'm actually going to host something in LA that's going to be pretty big in October. I'm riding the bull. That's going to be on that too, like September. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a couple different stunts, and I skydive every couple of months too. If you guys ever want to go skydiving with me.
Oh, right on, man. Mark, anything to add?
No, honestly, it's been amazing. This has been one of the best podcasts I've been listening to now in a while. I've been watching you for weeks now, Christopher, and I've been very, very eager about getting you on because I know. When it comes to politics and stuff like this, we always get shut down, and it's just nice to hear from somebody that's actually going against these people. And I think we need, like Tony said, we need more like you in the world. And hopefully, after this conversation, we can start changing things in the world.
And even when they try to shut you down, to be honest, they're not going to stop me, because I'm going to be allowed to do my physical or debates in person, and I'm going to be speaking the same thing, and they have to televise that.
Exactly.
Well,
can't wait. Can't wait.
I'm already there, buddy. Like, I can't wait to. And it's a pleasure to meet somebody on the, I guess you could say, the good of the dark side. Like, bring the light. I love it.
Absolutely. We're right behind you, Christopher.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, please help us out. Like, subscribe, share, follow Christopher on his things. I'll post all the links below and where you can find him. We all have to do this. We're whether it's a calling, whatever we can do, support your local farms. Be louder. Like, Mark and I are starting this process to just no holds barred. If we get strikes, who cares? We need to start telling people that there's hope, and people have healed, like Christopher. I mean, that's amazing, and thank you very much for sharing. And Chris, if you want to just hang on the line for 2 seconds, we'll stop this, and we will see everybody on Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. in the UK and Ireland, 7 p.m. in the Netherlands and Europe. Peter is sorry he couldn't be here, because if he heard that you liked raw ground beef, he would have lost his mind and dug a whole new hole for us to go through. So we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that on part 2. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.